Throw her out before she infects this hospital with poverty.
Yusuf Coker's voice cracked across the ICU corridor as two guards seized Blessing E by both arms. Her faded yellow cleaner's uniform was wet with rain. In her hand was a cracked gas detector. "Please," Blessing shouted. "That machine recorded what entered Mr. Johnson's room." Yusuf laughed. "You scrub toilets. Since when did a mop become a medical degree?" The guards dragged her backwards. Then the detector slipped. It struck the marble floor. The screen flashed red. 2:17 a.m. Dangerous carbon monoxide level. The corridor went silent. Inside the glass ICU room, billionaire CEO Michael Johnson lay unconscious, an oxygen mask over his face. The emergency report said he had collapsed at exactly 2:19 a.m. Blessing pointed at him, trembling. His heart did not simply fail. Your building poisoned him. Do not leave this story halfway. What happened next exposed a secret powerful people had buried for months. Tell us your location and local time in the comments. And subscribe, because this truth began with a woman nobody respected. 6 weeks earlier, at 6:41 in the evening on Tuesday, September 3, 2024, Blessing was standing inside a crowded yellow bus at Oberlande. Gripping the overhead rail with one hand and guarding a plastic food flask with the other. Lagos traffic had stopped moving. Danfo horns fought one another. Hawkers squeezed between buses with groundnuts, plantain chips, and cold sachet water balanced on their heads. The air outside carried petrol fumes, hot dust, and the smell of rain gathering somewhere over the lagoon. Blessing checked the time on her phone. Her shift began at 7. The bus conductor had promised Victoria Island in 12 minutes. 23 minutes had passed, and the bus had barely moved beyond the roundabout. "Oga, a beg, open the door," Blessing said. The conductor squeezed his face. "You want to fly? I want to trek. In this traffic? My work will not accept traffic as an apology." He opened the door with a hiss. Blessing stepped into the road and began to walk fast, weaving around cars and puddles. Her yellow work blouse was folded inside a black nylon bag so that road dust would not stain it before she arrived. She wore a simple teal skirt that had been repaired twice at the hem, flat black shoes, and a small backpack containing her notebook, gloves, and the cracked lunch flask she had carried for 4 years. She reached Harbour Crown Tower at 7:08 p.m. The building rose above the road like a blade of blue glass. 37 floors, imported marble, silent lifts. A silver sign at the entrance read Johansson Arban Systems, in letters taller than Blessing's forearm. At the staff gate, the biometric reader rejected her thumb twice. The security officer looked at her without lifting his head fully. "You people should stop rubbing bleach on your fingers," he said. "Every night, the machine is suffering because of cleaners." Blessing wiped her thumb on her skirt and tried again. Green light. She entered. The public lobby smelled of polished stone and expensive perfume. The service corridor behind it smelled of detergent, wet mops, and tired bodies. That corridor was where Harbour Crown hid the people who made it shine. Blessing changed into her yellow uniform in a locker room beside the laundry store. There were 19 lockers and 28 workers on the night roster. Some people kept their bags beneath the bench because they had no assigned space. The ventilation fan had stopped working 3 months earlier, so the room held heat like a closed pot. She tied a plain scarf over her hair and opened her notebook. At the top of a fresh page, she wrote, "The 3 September 2024. Night shift. Floor allocation, 30 to 37. She did this every evening. Not because anybody had asked her. Because 2 years earlier, before money pulled her out of technical school, An instructor had told the class something she never forgot. If an accident happens, he had said, memory will begin fighting memory. Write the time. Write what you saw. Write who you told. Paper does not fear a rich man. Blessing had laughed with the others that day. Now she treated the sentence like scripture. At 8:26 p.m., the public electricity supply went off. The tower lights blinked once. Then the diesel generators below the parking levels came alive with a deep, rolling growl. Blessing was cleaning the 34th floor conference room when a dull pain entered the back of her head. It was not sharp. It felt heavy, like somebody had placed a warm stone behind her eyes. She stopped wiping the glass table and pressed 2 fingers to her temple. The pain eased when she moved near the open service balcony. It returned when she entered the inner corridor. At 8:43 p.m., a laundry worker sat on the floor beside a trolley and vomited into a waste bin. At 9:05 p.m., a security guard on the 36th floor complained that the corridor was turning around him. At 9:18 p.m., Blessing opened her notebook again. She wrote every time, every floor, every complaint. The tower had fixed fire alarms, smoke detectors, and polished emergency signs. But Blessing had stopped trusting the green lights on the wall after a small electrical fire in July had filled a storage room with smoke before any alarm sounded. With Blizer 31, 750 saved over 5 months, she had bought a second-hand handheld gas detector from a technician at Alaba International Market. It was not a luxury model. The rubber casing was worn. The battery cover needed tape. But it could detect carbon monoxide, store recent alarm events, and make a sound loud enough to wake a sleeping person. She clipped it to the chest pocket of her uniform. At 9:27 p.m., it gave one short beep. Blessing froze. The screen showed 41 parts per million. She moved toward the service balcony. The number fell. She walked back toward the inner corridor that connected the penthouse lift lobby to the mechanical shaft. It rose to 68. Then 74. The alarm sounded again. Blessing stared at the small screen. She knew enough to know that one reading did not explain everything. The device could be old. The sensor could need calibration. The air pattern could change. But workers were already complaining of headaches and nausea. That was not something to ignore. She found the night maintenance log on a clipboard beside the electrical room. Under generator status, somebody had ticked normal. Under ventilation status, somebody had also ticked normal. Blessing looked up at the vent above her. A weak stream of warm air brushed her face. She called the facility's helpline. A man answered on the 6th ring. Hope no problem? Sir, my gas detector is showing carbon monoxide on 36th floor. Some workers are feeling sick. Which company are you? Brightway Cleaning Services. There was a pause. So you are a cleaner? Yes, sir. Call your supervisor. I called. His phone is not connecting. Madam, do not touch anything. Maybe you sprayed chemical and your small machine is confused. I have not sprayed chemical on that corridor. Then open window. There is no window. The line went dead. Blessing wrote the time, 9:34 p.m. Facilities helpline informed. No inspection yet. At 10:12 p.m., the reading reached 93 near a service duct behind the penthouse kitchen. Blessing took a photograph with her phone. At 10:16 p.m., she sent the picture to her cleaning supervisor and the general facilities email printed on the emergency notice board. Subject: urges reading on floors 34 to 36. Her message was simple. Good evening, Sir Moa. Workers are reporting headache and vomiting while generator is running. My handheld meter is showing carbon monoxide between 41 and 93 ppm near the inner service corridor. Please send a qualified person to check. I have moved workers away from the area. She attached 4 photographs. Nobody replied that night. By 1:20 a.m., public electricity returned. The generator shut down. The reading dropped to 0 within 40 minutes. The headaches reduced. The laundry worker, who had vomited, drank 2 sachets of water and returned to work because absence meant losing part of her pay. Blessing watched her push the trolley away. "My sister, go and sit down," she said. The woman shook her head. "If I sit, they will say I am lazy. You were vomiting. I am managing." That sentence followed poor people everywhere. I am managing. It could mean I am hungry. It could mean I am sick. It could mean I know something is wrong, but I cannot afford to stop. Blessing finished her shift at 5:17 a.m. and returned to the one-room apartment she shared with her mother in Ajigunle. Her mother was sitting on the edge of the bed, tying and untying the corner of her wrapper. "You came early today," the older woman said. Blessing looked at the wall clock. It was 6:38 a.m. "Mama, this is the normal time." Her mother frowned, then smiled as if she had remembered. "Yes, normal time. I was only testing you." Blessing did not correct her. She heated pap, placed 2 blood pressure tablets beside the cup, and watched until her mother swallowed them. "Your face is not fine," her mother said. "My head is paining me small. Too much bleach." "Maybe." But Blessing knew bleach did not explain why the headache came only when the generator ran. She slept for 4 hours. At 12:07 p.m., her phone vibrated. A reply had arrived from facilities. "Thank you for your observation. All systems are operating within approved parameters. Kindly channel future concerns through your direct employer to avoid unnecessary alarm. No name, no inspection result, no question about the sick workers." Blessing read the email 3 times. Then she opened her notebook and copied the exact wording. Over the next 11 days, the pattern repeated. When public electricity failed for long periods, workers on the upper floors developed headaches, nausea, and unusual tiredness. When the generator stopped, the symptoms eased. On September 7, a guard lost his balance near the 35th floor staircase. On September 9th, Blessing's detector recorded 117 parts per million at 11:52 p.m. On September 12, a housekeeper entered the empty penthouse to change bed linen and came out confused, asking why the lift had moved when it had not. Blessing filed another report. This time, her supervisor called her into a small office behind the loading bay. He did not offer her a chair. "You like writing too much," he said. "Sir, people are falling sick. Did any doctor say it is the building? No. But the readings. Are you an engineer? No, sir. Are you a doctor? No, sir. Then know your level. Clean what they ask you to clean." Blessing kept her voice calm. "Sir, send the company send an engineer to check under generator load." The supervisor leaned back. "Do you know how much Harbour Crown pays Brightway every month?" "No. More than your entire family will see in many years." "You want one second-hand market toy to spoil our contract? It is not about the contract. For you, maybe. For the rest of us, it is food." He pointed at the door. "Go and hold your mop." Blessing left. Her hands shook only after the door closed. She returned to work. At 2:11 a.m., she found 3 pigeons lying near the external exhaust ledge above the rear service yard. One was still moving weakly. The other 2 were dead. The exhaust pipe from the generator room ended lower than the approved drawing, displayed inside the maintenance corridor. Worse, the outlet faced a recessed wall, where wind could push fumes upward toward an air intake grill. Blessing stood beneath the grill and looked from the pipe to the drawing. The lines did not match. She took photographs from 5 angles. Then she climbed 1 level and photographed the intake label. Fresh air supply. Upper residential zone. Her stomach tightened. She sent the images to facilities at 2:37 a.m. Subject: asked to pairs. Close to fresh air intake. She added one sentence at the end. Please treat this as a safety concern, not a complaint about work. 2 days later, Yusuf Coker arrived at Harbour Crown Tower at 10:20 p.m. Everybody knew him. He was the chief operating officer of Johnson Urban Systems. He was also the younger brother of Michael Johnson's late wife. He wore a burgundy suit, black shirt, and polished shoes that reflected the lobby lights. He did not walk through the service corridor often. That night, he came directly to it. Blessing was cleaning a stainless steel lift door when 4 men followed him around the corner. Her supervisor was among them. Yusuf stopped in front of her. You are Blessing eBay? Yes, sir. He looked at the detector clipped to her pocket. This is the famous machine disturbing my office. Blessing swallowed. Sir, I reported readings when the generator was running. Give it to me. She hesitated. Sir, it belongs to me. Yusuf stretched out his hand. I did not ask who owns it. Blessing unclipped the detector and gave it to him. He turned it over as if it was something dirty. You bought this where? Alaba, sir. It was used, but the seller said the sensor was changed. I also checked it against another meter during my technical course. Yusuf smiled without warmth. So a cleaner attended small course and now wants to close a 37-floor tower. I did not say close it, I said check it. The men behind him shifted. Yusuf's smile disappeared. A person wearing a uniform that costs less than 1 bottle of wine in my house should be careful how she speaks to me. Blessing held his gaze. Sir, gas does not check uniform before entering somebody's blood. Silence. It lasted 2 full seconds. Then Yusuf threw the detector to the floor. The casing cracked near the battery cover. Blessing flinched. Her supervisor laughed nervously. Yusuf pointed at the broken device. There, your problem is solved. He turned to the supervisor. Prepare a statement. She will confirm that she became dizzy because she had not eaten, not because of this building. Blessing bent and picked up the detector. I will not sign that. Yusuf looked back slowly. What did you say? I ate before work. Other people were sick too. I will not write what is not true. His face hardened. You think honesty is shouting at somebody above you? No, sir. Honesty is refusing to help anybody hide danger. Yusuf stepped closer until she could smell his cologne. You people mistake access for equality. Because this tower allows you to enter through the back door, you think you belong inside it. Blessing said nothing. By tomorrow morning, he continued, you will no longer belong anywhere near it. At 8:13 a.m. the next day, Brightway Cleaning Services sent her a termination letter by WhatsApp. Reason: insubordination, unauthorized possession of technical equipment, and repeated disruption of client operations. Her final pay would be withheld pending investigation. Blessing sat on the edge of her bed, reading the message while her mother folded the same wrapper again and again beside her. What happened? Her mother asked. They removed me from work. Why? Because I reported something. Was it true? Blessing looked at her. Yes. Her mother nodded once. Then hunger may insult you for some time, but a lie will not own your mouth. Blessing lowered her head. She wanted to cry. Instead, she checked the detector. The screen still worked. The event memory still opened. The casing could close only with black tape, but the readings remained inside. She copied the most important events into her notebook and backed the photographs up to a memory card. Then she waited. For 6 days, nobody contacted her. On the 7th evening, a former colleague came to the compound after shift. The woman said the headaches had continued, but workers were now afraid to mention them. Blessing lent her the damaged detector. Clip it outside your blouse, Blessing warned. Do not enter any closed room to prove anything. If it alarms strongly, move to fresh air and report the time. Your life is more important than a reading. The colleague carried it during night shifts and sent photographs of the event screen to Blessing. Most readings were moderate. 2 were high enough to make Blessing forward another warning from her personal email. Again, no official answer came. 3 more weeks passed. Harbour Crown prepared for the official opening of its luxury residential floors. Social media carried videos of imported chandeliers, private elevators, and a rooftop pool. Yusuf appeared in interviews, speaking about world-class standards. Michael Johnson returned from Abuja on Tuesday, October 15, 2024, for an early board meeting the next morning. He was 52, disciplined and widely respected. His company had built estates, office complexes, and transport terminals across Nigeria. Newspapers called him a self-made billionaire. Staff called him demanding but fair, though most contract workers had never come close enough to test that description. That evening, rain flooded several roads on Victoria Island. Michael decided to sleep in the Harbour Crown penthouse instead of driving home. At 8:48 p.m., public electricity failed. The generators started. At 10:14 p.m., Michael sent Yusuf a message. "This penthouse gives me headache whenever power stays off. Ask engineering to check the air tomorrow." Yusuf replied at 10:19 p.m. "Likely stress, sir. Everything passed inspection. Rest well." At 1:53 a.m., Michael tried to call him. The call lasted 3 seconds and did not connect. At 2:17 a.m., Blessing's damaged detector was clipped to her former colleague's uniform near the 36th floor service lobby. The alarm screamed. The screen recorded a dangerous carbon monoxide event. The colleague moved toward the service balcony as Blessing had instructed. 2 minutes later, inside the penthouse beyond the same air route, Michael collapsed beside his bed. A domestic worker found him 7 minutes later and raised the alarm. By 3:02 a.m., an ambulance was racing toward Meridian Specialist Hospital in Ikoyi. By 4:10 a.m., senior executives had gathered outside the ICU. By 5:36 a.m., Yusuf had instructed company lawyers to prepare an emergency transfer of executive authority in case Michael remained unconscious. At 6:08 a.m., her former colleague arrived at the compound gate, soaked by rain and carrying the detector inside a nylon bag. Blessing. Hope no problem. The machine screamed at 2:17 near the service lobby. 2 minutes later, people began shouting that Oga Michael had collapsed in the penthouse. They carried him out. Management collected everybody's phone, but I had already put your machine inside my laundry bag. Blessing opened the event memory. 2:17 a.m. Dangerous carbon monoxide level. She looked at the cracked detector on the table. Her mother watched her from the bed. "You are going there," the older woman said. "They may not allow me enter. Then let them refuse you after you have spoken. They already called me a liar." Her mother pointed at the detector. Did the machine lie? Blessing wrapped it in a clean cloth, placed her notebook and memory card inside her backpack, and left the house in the rain. She reached Meridian Specialist Hospital at 7:46 a.m. The private entrance was crowded with black SUVs, police escorts, and men in dark suits. Reporters stood beyond the gate, shouting questions nobody answered. Blessing entered through the general reception. For 43 minutes, she moved from one desk to another. At the first desk, they told her to call the family. At the second, they asked whether she was a relative. At the third, a receptionist looked at her faded uniform and said, "Emergency information is not collected from job seekers." Blessing refused to leave. At 8:34 a.m., She saw Yusuf coming out of the private lift with 2 lawyers and 4 security officers. She stepped into the corridor. "Sir, please. I have the gas readings from Harbour Crown." Yusuf stopped. For one moment, surprise broke through his face, then rage covered it. "You. Mr. Johnson may have breathed carbon monoxide. The generator was running. The upper floor intake. Throw her out before she infects this hospital with poverty." 2 guards seized Blessing by both arms. The detector fell. The screen flashed red. 2:17 a.m. Dangerous carbon monoxide level. Inside the glass ICU room, Michael Johnson lay motionless beneath white sheets. Blessing pointed at him. "His heart did not simply fail," she said. "Your building poisoned him." A man in a white coat had just stepped out of the ICU. He looked at the detector, then at Blessing, then at Yusuf. "Release her," Dr. Solanwosu said. Yusuf turned sharply. "Doctor, this woman is a dismissed cleaner." Dr. Sola did not raise his voice. "I did not ask about her salary." The guards loosened their grip. He crouched, picked up the detector with a gloved hand and studied the screen. "What building?" he asked. "Harbour Crown Tower," Blessing replied. "What floor?" 34 to 37. Worse when the generator runs. "What time did power fail last night?" Yusuf answered before she could. "Doctor, do not let a dismissed cleaner rewrite medicine." Dr. Sola straightened. His eyes remained on Blessing. "What time did the generator start?" Nobody spoke. That silence changed everything. Joy Okoro was standing beside the medication trolley when Dr. Sola brought Blessing into a small consultation room at the end of the corridor. Joy had worked emergency and critical care for 11 years. She had seen frightened relatives arrive with prophecies, herbal mixtures, internet diagnoses, and rumors picked from WhatsApp groups. She had also seen doctors miss important facts because the person speaking wore slippers instead of a suit. She closed the door. "Sit down, my sister," she said. Blessing remained standing. Her arms still carried red marks from the guard's fingers. "I am fine, Ma. You are shaking. I am managing." Joy looked at her for 1 second longer, then pulled out a chair. Managed while sitting. Blessing sat. Dr. Sola placed the detector inside a clear specimen bag, not because it was biological evidence, but because he did not want anybody touching or switching it before the readings were copied. He wrote the time across the seal. 8:39 a.m. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Do not tell me what you think happened first. Tell me what you observed." Blessing opened her notebook. She described the first headache on September 3, the vomiting laundry worker, the guard who lost his balance, the readings that rose when the generator ran and fell after public electricity returned, the service duct, the dead pigeons, the exhaust outlet facing the recessed wall, the fresh air intake above it. She showed him the photographs and the emails. Dr. Sola asked questions without helping her answer. "Did you smell smoke?" "No, sir." "Did anybody complain of eye irritation?" "Not that I wrote down." "Did your device alarm around cleaning chemicals?" "No." "I tested that because facilities suggested it." "When was it last calibrated?" "I cannot prove a laboratory calibration after I bought it. I compared it with a technician's meter during my course in May. The readings were close, but I know that is not enough." Dr. Sola glanced at Joy. The answer mattered. Blessing was not pretending her machine was perfect. She was explaining its limit. "Why were you dismissed?" he asked. "I refused to sign that my dizziness came from hunger." "Were you hungry?" "I had eaten rice and beans at 6:10 p.m. I wrote it because they asked." Yusuf opened the door without knocking. 2 lawyers stood behind him. "This interview ends now," he said. Dr. Sola did not turn from Blessing. "Mr. Coker, kindly wait outside. My brother-in-law is lying unconscious in your ICU." I will not wait outside while a disgruntled cleaner creates a scandal. Dr. Sola faced him. Your brother-in-law arrived confused, hypoxic, and unresponsive after being found in an enclosed penthouse during prolonged generator use. We do not yet have a complete exposure history. That is a medical gap. He has a heart condition. He has controlled hypertension and mild coronary disease. That does not explain every finding. What finding? I discuss patient information with authorized relatives, not with a corridor full of lawyers. Yusuf lowered his voice. I am authorized. Then behave like a relative who wants us to investigate, not a public relations officer who wants us to stop. Joy held her breath. Yusuf's jaw tightened. You are making a serious mistake, doctor. So is any clinician who ignores a possible environmental exposure because the witness is poor. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Yusuf looked at Blessing. This woman's stole company equipment. Blessing rose halfway from her chair. It is mine. Sit, Dr. Sola said gently. She sat again. He turned to Yusuf. If you believe a theft occurred, report it through the proper channel. It does not erase the information. Yusuf left the room. The door shut harder than necessary. Dr. Sola picked up the telephone. He ordered a repeat arterial blood gas, lactate, cardiac enzymes, electrocardiographic monitoring, and a carboxyhemoglobin level. He requested an urgent toxicology consultation and instructed the ICU team to continue high-flow oxygen. Joy checked the ambulance record. Michael had received oxygen from 2:48 a.m., more than 5 hours before the blood sample would be taken. That could reduce the measured carboxyhemoglobin level. A low result would not automatically rule out earlier exposure. Timing mattered. At 9:17 a.m., Joy entered the ICU to examine Michael's belongings. The family driver had brought a sealed overnight bag from Harbour Crown. Inside were his phone, a cobalt blue shirt, a silver wristwatch, reading glasses, and the white sleepwear he had been wearing when he collapsed. The fabric smelled faintly of diesel exhaust. Joy did not treat smell as proof. Carbon monoxide itself had no smell. But combustion fumes nearby supported the need to ask more questions. She documented the bag and called Dr. Sola. Michael's phone required facial recognition or a passcode. Nobody opened it. The lock screen displayed 3 notifications. One was a message sent at 10:14 p.m. the previous night. This penthouse gives me headache whenever power stays off. Ask engineering to check the air tomorrow. Joy read it through the notification preview. Her skin tightened. At 9:42 a.m., Mama Ruth Johnson arrived. She was 71, small in frame, and wrapped in deep purple lace with a gold jewel that made her look taller. The corridor parted for her. Executives greeted her. Lawyers bent their heads. Even Yusuf's voice softened. Mama, you should have waited at home, he said. My son is unconscious and you are telling me to wait at home. The doctors are doing everything. Then why are 4 lawyers here before breakfast? Yusuf glanced toward them. Company continuity. Mama Ruth's eyes rested on the files in their hands. My son has not been dead for 1 minute, yet continuity is already wearing a suit. Nobody replied. Joy came out of the ICU and introduced herself. Mama Ruth held her wrist. Tell me the truth. Is my son dying? He is critically ill, Ma. His condition is serious. We are treating him and investigating the cause. What cause? Joy looked toward Dr. Sola's consultation room. There is a possible exposure history we are checking. Yusuf stepped between them. A dismissed cleaner brought nonsense from the building. Mama Ruth turned. What cleaner? Blessing was still inside the room. Yusuf answered quickly. A troublesome contract worker. We removed her weeks ago. Why? She was creating fear with a broken market machine. Mama Ruth's expression changed. When Michael was a boy, I cooked beside a faulty generator behind a beer parlor in Surulere, she said. Sometimes my head would turn. Sometimes I would forget what I was doing. One day, 3 people fainted together. They said it was heat until a mechanic moved the exhaust. She faced Joy. What symptoms does my son have? Joy chose her words carefully. Headache before collapse. Confusion. Loss of consciousness. Possible cardiac strain. Those findings can have many causes, Ma. The doctors are checking. Mama Ruth nodded. Then check properly. At 10:03 a.m., she asked to meet Blessing. Yusuf objected. Mama Ruth did not shout. She only said, "You are not the mother in this corridor." That ended the argument. Blessing stood when Mama Ruth entered the room. The older woman looked at the faded yellow uniform, the wet scarf and the marks on Blessing's arms. "They held you?" she asked. "It is nothing, Ma. It is not nothing when a person uses your skin to show power." Blessing lowered her eyes. Mama Ruth sat opposite her. "Did you come here for money?" "No, Ma." "Do you hate my son's company because they dismissed you?" "I hate what they ignored. I do not know your son enough to hate him. Can your machine be wrong?" "Yes, Ma." Yusuf smiled from the doorway. Blessing continued. "That is why the building must be tested with calibrated equipment by people who are independent. My machine is a warning. It is not a court judgment." Mama Ruth looked at Dr. Sola. "What do you need?" "A controlled inspection of the property, generator operation records, ventilation drawings, access to the penthouse, and the full pre-hospital timeline." "Do it." Yusuf stepped forward. "Mama, the building contains residents and confidential company data. We cannot allow strangers to create panic." Mama Ruth faced him. "My son may have collapsed because of that building. We have inspections, then another inspection will confirm them." His mouth tightened. "It is not that simple." "No," she said. "It is only difficult when somebody is afraid of the answer." By 11:26 a.m., Dr. Sola had formally notified the Lagos State Safety Authorities of a possible carbon monoxide exposure linked to a high-rise building. He also documented the notification inside Michael's medical record. Once written there, it could not disappear quietly. The first laboratory results returned at 12:14 p.m. Michael's carboxyhemoglobin level was 6% after hours of oxygen. The number was not dramatic enough to stand alone. A smoker could sometimes have an elevated level, but Michael was a non-smoker, and the sample had been taken late. His lactate was raised. His electrocardiogram showed changes consistent with cardiac stress. His brain scan showed no major stroke. Dr. Sola called the toxicology specialist and described the exposure timeline. The advice was direct. Continue 100% oxygen. Monitor cardiac rhythm and neurological status closely. Assess for transfer for advanced oxygen therapy if his condition and specialist criteria supported it. Investigate the environment urgently. No miracle injection. No secret antidote. Only time, oxygen, monitoring, and evidence. At 1:05 p.m., safety officers arrived at Harbour Crown Tower with calibrated multigas meters, samplings equipment, and an order restricting access to the upper residential floors. Yusuf sent a company representative to meet them. He did not go himself. The building manager insisted that all systems had passed inspection. He produced a file containing signed certificates and a ventilation drawing, stamped "Proved." The lead safety officer compared the drawing with the photographs Blessing had supplied. The exhaust outlet in the photograph was not where the approved drawing placed it. At 1:48 p.m., the upper floors were evacuated. Residents complained in the lobby. One man demanded to know who would pay for his hotel. A woman in dark glasses asked whether the exercise was a publicity stunt. The night workers did not complain. They stood near the service gate, watching the engineers carry in equipment, as though somebody had finally translated their headaches into a language the building respected. The inspection team first measured the building with all generators off. Readings were low. They inspected ventilation routes, pressure differences, dampers, and intake positions. They photographed serial numbers on installed alarms. They sealed the generator control panel and recorded every person present. At 3:31 p.m., under controlled conditions, and after confirming that the affected floors were empty, they started one generator. For 12 minutes, little changed. At 17 minutes, carbon monoxide rose near the rear service shaft. At 24 minutes, the reading inside the penthouse kitchen reached 62 parts per million. At 31 minutes, it reached 146. At 37 minutes, one monitor near the bedroom corridor recorded 302. The lead officer ordered the generator shut down. Nobody argued. The team found that an exhaust extension shown on the approved drawing had not been installed. Instead, a shorter pipe ended inside a recessed exterior space beneath the upper fresh air intake. Under certain wind and pressure conditions, the intake pulled exhaust into the tower. A motorized damper meant to close during generator operation was also not functioning. The fixed carbon monoxide detectors on floors 34 to 37 did not alarm. When engineers opened one unit, the internal sensor did not match the model listed on the purchase invoice. The casing looked expensive. The inside was cheap. At Meridian Hospital, Dr. Solar received the preliminary field report at 5:02 p.m. He read it twice. Then he entered Michael's ICU room. The CEO remained unconscious, though his oxygen level and heart rhythm had become more stable. His face looked gray beneath the lights. Tubes crossed his body. The hands that had signed contracts worth billions lay open and still on the sheet. Dr. Solar adjusted the oxygen delivery and watched the monitor. Outside, Yusuf was speaking to the press. "We are cooperating fully," he said into the microphones. "There is no confirmed link between Harbour Crown Tower and Mr. Johnson's medical event. We urge the public not to spread dangerous speculation started by a disgruntled former contractor." The statement went live at 5:11 p.m. At 5:18 p.m., Blessing's photograph appeared on social media. It had been taken when security dragged her toward the hospital exit earlier that morning. Her scarf was slipping. One shoe had twisted. Her mouth was open as she shouted. The caption read, "Dismissed cleaner. Disrupts billionaire. Treatment with Brockendives." Another post called her a blackmailer. A third claimed she had demanded fined $50 million to remain silent. Blessing stared at the screen. "I did not ask anybody for £1, she whispered. Joy stood beside her near the staff cafeteria. "Did any reporter call you?" "No." Then they published an answer before asking a question. Blessing's phone rang. Her landlord's voice came through, loud and frightened. "What problem did you carry to this house? Reporters are asking people about you. Police may come. I do not want trouble. I have not committed any crime. Trouble does not ask who committed crime before entering compound. Please give me time. You have until Friday. Remove your things." The call ended. Blessing sat slowly. For the first time since morning, tears filled her eyes. Joy did not tell her not to cry. She placed a bottle of water on the table and waited. After a while, Blessing wiped her face. "Maybe I should have kept quiet," she said. Joy shook her head. "That thought is how dangerous systems recruit good people." Blessing looked up. "I may lose my house. I know. My mother is not strong. I know. What if Mr. Johnson still dies?" Joy's answer came softly. "Doing the right thing does not buy control over the ending. It only means you did not join the wrong thing. At 6:44 p.m., Yusuf entered the ICU reception with a written instruction from the company's legal department. It requested that all communication about Michael's illness pass through him as acting family liaison. Mama Ruth tore the paper in half. "You are not acting anything," she said. Yusuf stared at her. "Mama, emotion cannot run a company, and greed cannot run a sick room. The board needs stability. My son needs air." He leaned closer. "If investors panic, thousands of workers can lose their jobs." Mama Ruth looked toward Blessing. "You used workers as an excuse when workers were the first people breathing your danger." Yusuf's eyes sharpened. "You are listening to her now?" "I am listening to evidence." At 7:02 p.m., the preliminary site findings reached the hospital. Dr. Sola read the most important line aloud to Mama Ruth. "Carbon monoxide accumulation reproduced under generator operation in upper residential zone. Immediate closure and full engineering investigation recommended." Blessing covered her mouth. Not from happiness. Because the result meant she had been right, and being right meant people had truly been poisoned while managers called them hungry. Yusuf took the report. His eyes moved quickly down the page. Then he pointed to one paragraph. "Preliminary." It says, "preliminary." Dr. Sola nodded. "Yes, that is why we continue investigating." "So nothing is proven. A dangerous exposure has been reproduced, but you cannot prove it caused Michael's collapse, not from the building test alone. We combine clinical findings, timeline, exposure history, and independent analysis." Yusuf returned the paper. "Exactly. Do not damage a company with assumptions." Blessing spoke from the far side of the corridor. "Sir, you damaged the company when you broke the alarm instead of checking the air." He turned. His expression was calm now, too calm. "You will regret speaking my name," he said. At 8:26 p.m., 2 police officers arrived at the hospital. They asked Blessing to explain why company property had been found in her possession. Yusuf had filed a theft complaint. Blessing opened her backpack and removed the faded receipt from Alabar Market. The paper was creased and partly smudged, but the item description and serial number were visible. She also showed the bank transfer of $31,750. The officers photographed both. "Why did the company say it belongs to them?" one asked. Blessing looked at Yusuf across the corridor. "Because a stolen machine is easier to ignore than a worker's machine." The officers did not arrest her. They asked her to report for a formal statement. The next morning, Yusuf watched them leave. His plan had not worked. Not yet. At 9:13 p.m., Joy returned to the emergency records office and opened the digital note she had entered after speaking with Blessing. The note contained the exact times, symptoms, location, and generator history. A red notification appeared at the top of the screen. "Amendment request by Administrative Review. Suggested change. Delete unverified environmental allegations supplied by unauthorized third party." Joy stared at it. Then she clicked a line. Reason: information is clinically relevant exposure history, clearly attributed to witness and pending independent verification. Removing it may compromise patient care. She saved the response. At 9:19 p.m., she printed an audit copy and placed it in the locked clinical governance file. At 10:07 p.m., Dr. Sola received a call from the hospital medical director. The conversation lasted 6 minutes. When it ended, he stood alone beside the ICU window. The medical director had told him to focus on treatment and leave corporate environmental matters to management. Dr. Sola had replied that exposure history was treatment. The medical director had reminded him that Johnson Urban Systems funded one of the hospital's new surgical suites. Dr. Sola had said nothing for 3 seconds. Then he asked for the instruction in writing. The medical director ended the call. Inside the ICU, Michael's fingers moved. Only slightly. Dr. Solar entered at once. Michael did not wake fully. His eyelids fluttered. His lips moved beneath the oxygen mask. Dr. Solar leaned closer. The sound was weak. "Air," Michael whispered. Then his eyes closed again. At Harbour Crown Tower, investigators were photographing the false detector casings when an engineer compared the safety certificate with the installed serial numbers. None matched. The certificate claimed that 12 industrial-grade detectors had been installed and tested on August 27. Only 4 low-cost units were found. 8 were missing entirely. At the bottom of the certificate was one final approval signature, Yusuf Coker. By 7:30 the next morning, the rain had stopped, but the gutters in Ajigunle were still full. Blessing left home before her mother woke properly. She packed the detector receipt, her notebook, the memory card, and printed copies of her emails inside a transparent file. She also carried 2 boiled eggs and a bottle of water, because she had learned something important from the way powerful people spoke. When they could not answer your evidence, they examined your hunger. She reached the police station at 9:06 a.m. The statement took 2 hours and 41 minutes. The officer asked where she bought the detector, when she first used it, why she removed it from Harbour Crown Tower, and whether she had ever demanded money from anybody at Johnson Urban Systems. Blessing answered each question. She did not decorate the truth. She did not say she had known Michael would collapse. She said she had known only that workers were becoming ill, and that the readings rose during generator use. At 11:47 a.m., the officer placed her receipt beside the photograph of the serial number. "They match," he said. Blessing nodded. "Did anybody from the company know you had proof of purchase?" "My supervisor saw the detector many times, but I do not know whether he saw the receipt." The officer closed the file. "We will invite the complainant for clarification." "Am I under arrest?" "No." "Can I have an acknowledgement that I submitted these documents?" He looked at her. "Who taught you to ask that?" "Experience." He stamped a copy. Blessing left with it inside her file. Outside the station, a grey SUV was waiting. A man in a dark suit stepped out. He did not give his name. "Miss Ib?" Blessing stopped 3 meters away. "Who are you?" "I represent people who want to resolve this matter quietly. I have nothing to resolve with an unnamed person." He smiled. "You are careful. Good. It will help you understand the offer." He opened the rear door of the vehicle and removed a document envelope. Inside was a settlement agreement. The amount printed on the first page was $3,750,000. Blessing stared at the number. It was more money than she had ever held. Enough to pay rent for years in a modest place. Enough to restart her technical training. Enough to buy her mother's medication without counting tablets at the end of every month. The man tapped the page. "You sign that your device was unreliable, that your symptoms were caused by hunger and cleaning chemicals, and that you made statements while distressed after dismissal. You also agree not to speak to journalists or investigators without company counsel." "Which company?" He did not answer. Blessing turned the pages. There was a clause requiring her to surrender the detector, notebook, photographs, and all copies of her emails. She looked up. "If the alarm was useless, why are you paying me to call it useless?" The man's smile faded. "This money can change your life. It can also buy my mouth. Do not be dramatic. Corporations settle disputes every day. This is not only my dispute. People were sick. People get headaches in Lagos. Then let the investigation prove it was Lagos." He lowered his voice. "You have an old mother. Your landlord is already uncomfortable. Your former employer is withholding your salary. Think well before you carry a rich man's fight on your head. Blessing folded the agreement once and returned it. My mother taught me not to use another person's breath to pay rent. She walked away. The man called after her. You will not see this amount again. Blessing did not turn. Her legs felt weak until she entered a crowded bus. Then she began to cry quietly, facing the window so nobody would ask questions. Refusing money did not make poverty disappear. It only meant poverty would continue waiting for her at home. At Meridian Specialist Hospital, Michael opened his eyes at 12:22 p.m. He did not recognize the room immediately. His gaze moved from the ceiling to the monitor, then to Dr. Sola's face. When he tried to speak, only a dry sound came out. You are in the hospital, Dr. Sola said. You had a serious exposure and lost consciousness. Do not force yourself. Michael blinked slowly. Penthouse, he whispered. Yes. Generator? Yes. His eyes closed. A tear moved from the corner of one eye into his hairline. Dr. Sola checked his pupils and asked simple questions. His name, the year, where he was. Michael answered his name correctly. He thought the year was 2022. He could not remember arriving at the hospital. The neurological effects worried Dr. Sola. He explained to Mama Ruth that waking up did not mean the danger had passed. Michael needed continued monitoring. Some problems after carbon monoxide exposure could appear later, including memory, concentration, and mood changes. Mama Ruth listened without interrupting. Can money fix it? She asked. Dr. Sola shook his head. Money can provide care. It cannot command the brain to heal faster. She nodded. That may be the first language my son cannot buy. Yusuf entered 5 minutes later. When he saw Michael's eyes open, relief and fear crossed his face together. Brother, he said, moving toward the bed. Michael looked at him. His lips moved. Yusuf leaned down. What did you change? Michael asked. The room became still. Yusuf straightened. You are confused, the doctor said. The gas affected your memory. Michael's breathing quickened. Dr. Sola stepped between them. That is enough for now. He needs rest. Yusuf tried to remain. Dr. Sola pointed toward the door. Out. For once, Yusuf obeyed. At 1:10 p.m., the hospital administration removed Dr. Sola as lead physician on Michael's case. The letter praised his clinical work and stated that a multidisciplinary team would now provide enhanced executive coordination. Dr. Sola read the phrase twice, enhanced executive coordination. It meant somebody wanted medicine to become polite. He requested a formal handover meeting and documented every pending concern. He included the environmental test, the delayed carboxyhemoglobin sample, Michael's cognitive state, the need for ongoing neurological review, and the importance of preserving exposure history. The new team could take his name off the door. They could not say they had not been told. Joy was transferred from the ICU to a medical ward on the 3rd floor that same afternoon. The nursing manager called it routine rotation. Joy asked why the rotation had been scheduled 11 days earlier than the roster. No answer came. Before leaving the ICU, she completed her notes, countersigned the belongings inventory, and confirmed that the digital audit trail showed her refusal to delete Blessing's statement. She also placed a copy of the preliminary safety report in the hospital's clinical governance file. This was not rebellion. It was documentation. That evening, Blessing returned home to find her mattress, cooking pot, and 2 bags outside the compound gate. Her mother sat on a plastic chair beside them, holding her medicine pouch. The landlord stood in the doorway. I told you Friday, Blessing said. People came again. I cannot wait. You cannot put an old woman outside like this. Then carry her to the billionaire's hospital. Since you are now working with rich people. Blessing's mother looked at the ground. Blessing felt anger climb into her throat. She wanted to shout. She wanted to curse him until the entire street gathered. Instead, she took out her phone and recorded the bags outside the gate. Please say on video that you are ending the tenancy today and returning the unused rent. The landlord stepped back. Do not record me. Then let us follow the agreement. You want to teach me law in my house? No. I want my mother's medicine and our property inside until we arrange somewhere. Neighbors had begun to watch. The landlord looked around and lowered his voice. You have until morning. He allowed them back in. Blessing carried each bag herself. Her mother sat on the bed and touched her face. You should have taken the money, the older woman said. Blessing froze. How did you know? A man came before you. He asked whether you were home. His shoe was too clean for this street. Blessing sat beside her. Mama, the money would require me to say the machine was wrong. Was it wrong? No. Then I did not say you should sell truth. I only said poverty is not easy. Blessing leaned against her shoulder. For a long time, neither spoke. At Harbour Crown Tower, the independent inspection had become a full forensic engineering review. The team removed detector units one by one. Each was photographed in place, tagged and sealed. The exhaust measurements were repeated with wind direction recorded. Ventilation dampers were tested. Generator maintenance logs were compared with fuel use. The numbers did not agree. Fuel records showed longer generator operation than the official logs admitted. The maintenance file claimed the penthouse fresh air damper had been replaced on August 22. The installed damper carried a manufacturing date of September 6. A document cannot install a machine before the machine exists. The investigators requested procurement records. Yusuf's office delayed. They requested email approvals. The server team said some folders were unavailable because of routine archiving. They requested the original building revision drawings. Only photocopies arrived. Mama Ruth heard about the delays from the family lawyer and called Peter Adeyemi at 8:40 p.m. Peter was 49 and had spent 17 years reporting on building failures, procurement fraud and workplace deaths. He had learned not to confuse access with truth. Powerful people often invited journalists into beautiful rooms because they wanted the room, not the facts, to become the story. He met Mama Ruth the next morning in a quiet corner of the hospital chapel. I am not asking you to protect my son's company, she told him. That is good, Peter replied, because I will not. I am asking you to find what happened. Do you accept that what happened may make your son look negligent? Mama Ruth's hands tightened around her handbag. I accept that hiding it may make him worse. Peter nodded. What documents do you have? She gave him copies of the preliminary field report, the detector certificate, and Michael's lock screen message. She did not give him private medical details beyond what Dr. Sola had authorized for the investigation. Peter did not publish that day. He started with verification. He checked the company named on the detector supply invoice. Safecore Integrated Solutions Limited had received $318,700,000 for fire, gas and environmental monitoring equipment across Harbour Crown Tower. Its registered office was a small suite in Lekki. Peter visited at 2:16 p.m. The receptionist told him Safecore had moved. The landlord said no technical company had ever operated there. A legal consultancy had rented the room for mail collection. Peter searched corporate records. One director shared an address with a junior partner at the law firm that handled several of Yusuf's private property transactions. Another director had been a driver for a company controlled by Yusuf 3 years earlier. Peter followed the payments. Safecore transferred mine 121,300 000 to a project advisory company, 12 days after receiving the contract payment. That company transferred money to 3 accounts connected to land purchases in Yusuf's name. The path was not enough for publication yet, but it was enough to keep digging. He found the contractor who had installed the exhaust pipe. The man refused to meet. Peter sent him a photograph of the approved drawing beside the actual outlet. 2 hours later, the contractor called from an unknown number. "We followed a revised instruction," he said. "From whom? I will not mention name. Was the revision signed? We were told signature would come later." "Did it come?" The line went quiet. "No. Why did you do it?" "We were behind schedule. The proper extension required scaffolding and imported fittings. Management said opening date could not move." "Which management?" The contractor ended the call. Peter saved the recording, but he did not build the whole case on an unnamed voice. He looked for people whose bodies had already kept records. Within 4 days, he located 6 former or current night workers from Harbour Crown. One had fainted near the laundry room on September 7. One had vomited 3 times during an overnight event. One had been sent home after becoming confused at the penthouse service entrance. One security officer had visited a clinic with chest pain and dizziness after a 12-hour shift. 2 cleaners had recurring headaches that stopped during a 3-day generator repair. Their workplace records described the episodes as dehydration, hunger, malaria symptoms, poor fitness or failure to eat before duty. None mentioned possible shared exposure. Peter asked each person the same question. Did anybody ask whether others on the same shift were sick? The answer was no. One worker showed him a form she had been told to sign. "I confirm that my symptoms resulted from personal health issues unrelated to Harbour Crown Tower." She had refused. Her contract ended 6 days later. Another had signed because she needed her final salary. "I knew it was not true," she said. "But truth was not going to pay my transport home." Peter did not judge her. That sentence became the day's center of his investigation. Systems did not always need people to believe a lie. Sometimes they only needed people to be too hungry to resist it. At Meridian Hospital, Michael's physical condition improved slowly. He could sit upright for short periods. He recognized his mother and Dr. Sola, though Dr. Sola was no longer officially leading the case. He struggled to recall recent conversations. Bright light irritated him. Sudden questions made him angry. Yusuf visited every day with documents. Michael signed none. On the 5th day, Yusuf brought an emergency board resolution naming him interim executive chairman. He placed a pen beside Michael's hand. "This only keeps the company stable," he said. Michael stared at the page. The letters blurred. "I cannot read this. I will explain. Then you can also wait. The lenders are asking questions. Residents are threatening action. We need one voice." Michael looked at him. "You already have too much voice." Yusuf's expression tightened. "Mama is allowing outsiders to damage everything we built. What did you change in the tower?" "Nothing dangerous. That is not an answer." "You are not well." Michael pushed the pen away. Then a sick man should not sign. Yusuf collected the papers. At the door, he turned. "Do you know how many people will suffer if this company falls?" Michael's answer was slow. "How many suffered while it stood?" That night, Yusuf called an emergency board meeting for the following Thursday. The notice stated that Michael's prolonged incapacity created an operational threat. It proposed temporary transfer of banking authority, legal control, and server administration to the chief operating officer. The meeting would take place at Harbour Crown Tower after safety officials cleared the lower conference level. Mama Ruth received the notice at 11:08 p.m. She carried it to Michael's room. He read the first paragraph twice. "What happens if he controls the servers?" he asked. "Peter says procurement emails are already missing." Michael closed his eyes. "Call the board secretary. Tell them I will attend by secure video. You are still weak. I do not need to stand to refuse theft." Meanwhile, the company's information technology team received an internal instruction to purge archived mailboxes associated with the Harbour Crown project. The instruction described the deletion as routine data retention. A systems engineer noticed two problems. The listed folders were under active legal and safety review, and the request had been issued at 11:43 p.m. from a device assigned to Yusuf's executive office. Instead of deleting them immediately, the engineer created a protected snapshot under the company's incident response policy and informed the external forensic auditors appointed by the safety authority. At 7:12 the next morning, the auditors confirmed that 4,286 emails, 317 attachments, and 19 approval logs had been marked for deletion. Among them were Blessing's reports. Her first email had been forwarded 3 times. The final recipient was Yusuf Coker. His reply, sent at 6:52 a.m. on September 4th, contained 7 words. "Do not escalate. Opening date remains fixed." Peter received a verified copy through the authorized investigation channel. He read the sentence in silence. Then he compared it with Yusuf's public claim that management had never received a credible warning. The lie was no longer a matter of opinion. At 10:30 a.m., Peter met Blessing in the hospital cafeteria. He placed a recorder on the table but did not switch it on. "Do you agree to be interviewed?" he asked. "Will you publish everything I say?" "No. I will verify what can be verified. I will tell readers what is established, what is alleged, and what remains unknown." "Will you call me a hero?" Peter studied her. "Do you want that?" "No. Heroes are easy to praise and easy to abandon. I want the workers tested." Peter switched on the recorder. "Then start there." Blessing spoke for 73 minutes. She described the symptoms, the reports, the cracked detector, the termination letter, and the settlement offer. She gave Peter copies, not originals. She showed him the police acknowledgement, proving the detector's serial number matched her receipt. When he asked why she kept writing after people insulted her, she looked toward the hospital corridor. "My mother sometimes forgets the day," she said. "If a building makes somebody's mind disappear, even for one night, it is not a small thing." Peter stopped the recorder. "That sentence is personal. May I use it?" Blessing thought for a moment. "Yes, but do not use my mother's photograph. I will not." His investigation was published at 6 a.m. on Wednesday. The headline did not call Yusuf a murderer. The evidence did not support that word. It read, "Workers warned of toxic ire before Harbour Crown collapse. Wreckers show reports were subscribed." The article linked the workers' symptoms, the preliminary engineering findings, the procurement discrepancies, and the deletion order. It stated clearly that criminal responsibility remained for investigators and the courts to determine. By 7:15 a.m., the story was everywhere. By 8:04 a.m., 2 board members demanded an independent audit. By 8:31 a.m., lenders requested preservation of all project records. By 9:12 a.m., the Safety Authority issued a public statement confirming that dangerous carbon monoxide accumulation had been reproduced during controlled testing. By 10:20 a.m., Yusuf's office released a denial accusing Peter of selective reporting. But the denial did not answer one question. Why had Blessing's email reached Yusuf 6 weeks before Michael collapsed? At 11:43 a.m., the forensic auditors recovered a second email. It had been sent by the building engineering consultant on August 29. The message warned that the shortened exhaust route created a risk of recirculation into the upper, fresh air intake and recommended delaying residential occupation until correction. Yusuf had replied 6 minutes later, "Temporary arrangement accepted. Do not include speculative language in final handover report." The auditors printed the email, sealed it, and entered it into the evidence register. The emergency board meeting was now 24 hours away. Yusuf still controlled the stage, but he no longer controlled the record. Thursday morning arrived with a hard blue sky over Lagos. Harbour Crown Tower looked clean from the road. That was the first insult. Its glass walls reflected the sun. The silver letters at the entrance still shone. Water still moved through the decorative fountain in front of the lobby, though the upper residential floors remained sealed and empty. Nothing on the outside showed that workers had vomited in service corridors, that a man had nearly died in the penthouse, or that thousands of emails had almost vanished at the touch of a key. At 8:20 a.m., board members began arriving through the main entrance. At 8:47 a.m., representatives of the Safety Authority entered with sealed evidence cases. At 9:03 a.m., external forensic auditors checked the conference room display system. At 9:18 a.m., Peter and 3 other accredited journalists were escorted to a reserved section at the back of the hall. Their phones remained with them, but recording would begin only after the board chair declared the evidentiary session open. At 9:26 a.m., 6 night workers took seats along the left wall. They wore simple clothes. One carried a clinic file. Another held the termination form she had refused to sign. They looked out of place beneath the chandelier. But the room belonged to their lungs as much as it belonged to any shareholder. Blessing arrived at 9:34 a.m. Her yellow uniform had been washed so many times that the fabric looked pale at the elbows. She had repaired one loose button with green thread. Instead of the black work trousers she usually wore, she wore the teal skirt from the evening she first recorded the warning. Mama Ruth had offered to buy her new clothes. Blessing had refused. "I want them to see the uniform they ignored," she said. Mama Ruth did not argue. She only adjusted Blessing's scarf and told her, "Do not let their chairs frighten you. A chair is wood and cloth. It is not wisdom." At 9:51 a.m., Yusuf entered. He wore a ruby-red suit, black shirt, and no tie. His face was calm. 2 lawyers followed him with thick files. He greeted the board members one by one, touching shoulders, lowering his voice, behaving like a man attending a difficult meeting rather than a man whose written instructions sat inside sealed evidence bags. When he saw Blessing, he stopped. His eyes moved from her yellow uniform to the teal skirt. "You came dressed for cleaning," he said. Blessing held her notebook against her chest. "I came dressed as the person who sent the warning." Yusuf gave a soft laugh. "Do not mistake press attention for importance. I did not. What do you think will happen here? They will make you managing director. Because your market toy made noise? No. Then why are you smiling?" Blessing had not known she was. "Because today you cannot break the record by throwing it on the floor." The lawyers behind Yusuf stopped moving. His smile disappeared. At 10 a.m., the board chair called the meeting to order. The emergency resolution transferring executive authority to Yusuf was the first item on the agenda. His legal team argued that Michael's medical incapacity threatened payroll, credit facilities, and ongoing projects. They asked the board to vote before considering unverified operational complaints. Mama Ruth rose from her seat. "My son will attend," she said. Yusuf's lawyer objected. "We have not received independent confirmation that Mr. Johnson is cognitively fit to participate." A secure screen at the front of the hall came alive. Michael appeared from a private hospital room. He was sitting upright with support. His face was thinner. A plain white shirt hung loosely on his shoulders. Dr. Sola sat to one side as an observer, not as the treating lead. A neurologist from the hospital team had provided written confirmation that Michael could understand the meeting, though he would require breaks. Michael looked into the camera. "I am able to hear," he said slowly. "I am able to refuse. Begin with the safety evidence." The board chair hesitated. Yusuf leaned toward his microphone. "Michael, nobody is trying to take your company. We are trying to protect it while you recover." Michael's eyes rested on him. Then protection can survive questions. The chair ordered the evidentiary session opened. The journalists were permitted to record. The room changed. Yusuf's lawyer requested that Blessing be excluded because she had an active employment dispute and could prejudice the board. The external auditor replied that she was a documented reporting witness whose emails formed part of the preserved project record. Yusuf turned toward the board. "This is becoming theater. This company employs engineers, physicians, lawyers, and safety consultants. We do not need lectures from a woman whose highest office was a toilet corridor." The words entered the hall like a slap. One of the night workers lowered her head. Peter stopped writing. Mama Ruth began to rise, but Blessing touched her arm gently. Then Blessing stood. She did not answer the insult first. She opened her notebook. September 3, 2024, she read. 8:43 p.m. Laundry worker vomiting on floor 34 while generator was running. Yusuf shifted in his seat. September 3, 9:27 p.m. Personal detector recorded 41 parts per million near inner corridor. She turned one page. September 3, 9:34 p.m. Facilities helpline informed. Caller advised me to open a window. There was no window. A murmur moved through the room. September 9, 11:52 p.m. Reading reached 117 near service shaft. Guard reported dizziness. Another page. September 12, 1:08 a.m. Housekeeper came out of penthouse confused and asked why the lift moved when it did not move. Another, September 15, 2:11 a.m. 2 dead pigeons and 1 weak pigeon near exhaust ledge. Photographs taken. Her voice remained steady. September 15, 2:37 a.m. Email sent showing exhaust outlet below upper fresh air intake. She looked at Yusuf. September 17, approximately 10:26 p.m. Mr. Yusuf Coker took my detector, called it a market toy, and threw it on the floor. He ordered my supervisor to make me sign that hunger caused my symptoms. Yusuf pressed his microphone. "This is her private notebook. She could have written it yesterday." Blessing nodded. "Yes, sir. That is why my notebook is not the only evidence." The external auditor displayed the server logs. Each email showed a creation time, transmission path, and recipient chain. Blessing's September 3 report appeared on the screen. The photographs were attached. The metadata matched the files on her memory card. The forwarding trail ended at Yusuf's office. His reply appeared beneath it. "Do not escalate. Opening date remains fixed. Nobody spoke." The auditor continued. A second email appeared. It was the engineering consultant's warning, dated August 29. The shortened exhaust route creates a risk of recirculation into upper residential fresh air intake. Residential occupation should be delayed until corrective extension and damper commissioning are completed. Yusuf's response appeared 6 minutes later. Temporary arrangement accepted. Do not include speculative language in final handover report. A board member removed his glasses. "Mr. Coker," he said, "did you write these messages?" Yusuf leaned back. "The language is being removed from context." Large projects involve temporary deviations. Experts advised that the risk was manageable. Which experts? My legal team will provide the full correspondence, the auditor answered. We recovered the full correspondence. No engineer approved residential occupation under the temporary route. Yusuf's fingers tightened around his pen. The board chair called Joy. She walked to the witness table in her Navy uniform and placed her professional identification beside the microphone. Yusuf's lawyer objected that medical evidence was confidential. Joy replied, I will discuss only information authorized by the patient and relevant to the exposure investigation. Michael's voice came through the screen. I authorize it. Joy described the ambulance oxygen timeline, the late blood sample, the neurological symptoms, and the message visible on Michael's lock screen. She explained why a measured carboxyhemoglobin level, after hours of oxygen, could not be interpreted without exposure history. She did not claim the number alone, proved the building caused the collapse. She explained how medicine actually worked. Clinical findings are not judged one by one as if they are strangers, she said. We look at the pattern. Mr. Johnson developed headache during generator use. He was found unconscious in an enclosed upper-floor residence. Environmental testing later reproduced dangerous carbon monoxide accumulation in that zone. His clinical findings were consistent with significant exposure, and competing causes were investigated. Yusuf's lawyer stood. Did the cleaner diagnose him? No. Did her device determine treatment? No. Then why is she important? Joy looked toward Blessing. She supplied the missing exposure history. A witness does not need a medical degree to say where and when a person became ill. The lawyer sat. Dr. Solar spoke next from the video link. He explained that carbon monoxide had no color and no reliable warning smell. He described how headache, nausea, confusion, and collapse could be mistaken for other conditions. He also described the limits of the evidence. We cannot reconstruct every molecule Mr. Johnson inhaled, he said. But the medical timeline, the environmental reproduction, the generator operation, and the absence of a stronger competing explanation support carbon monoxide poisoning as the cause of his collapse. A board member asked whether Michael's existing heart disease caused the event. It increased his vulnerability, Dr. Solar replied. It did not manufacture carbon monoxide inside the penthouse. A few people in the press section exhaled at once. The lead safety officer then presented the building findings. Photographs showed the shortened exhaust pipe. A diagram showed the recessed wall and fresh air intake. A video recorded calibrated monitors rising during controlled generator operation. At 17 minutes, the rear shaft level increased. At 24 minutes, the penthouse kitchen reached 62 parts per million. At 31 minutes, it reached 146. At 37 minutes, the bedroom corridor monitor recorded 302. The officer paused the video. Testing stopped at that point for safety, he said. The generator was shut down. The area was ventilated. Nobody remained inside without appropriate protective procedure. He displayed the fixed alarm units. The purchase invoice lists 12 industrial-grade carbon monoxide detectors. 4 low-cost units were found. 8 locations contained empty casings or no sensor unit. The installed units did not match the invoiced serial numbers. Yusuf interrupted. Procurement was delegated to whom? The board chair asked. Facilities. The auditor displayed the approval chain. Contract selection, Yusuf Coker. Payment authorization, Yusuf Coker. Final handover acceptance, Yusuf Coker. Yusuf's lawyer whispered into his ear. The room waited. The silence stretched until the hum of the air conditioner became noticeable. Peter looked up at the vent above him. so did Blessing. For the first time, several board members followed their eyes. Air had become visible in their minds. The forensic accountant presented the Safecore payments. 318,700,000 paid for certified detection and monitoring equipment. Minor 121,300,000 transferred to a project advisory company 12 days later. Subsequent funds used in 3 land transactions linked to Yusuf. The accountant made an important distinction. These transfers indicate undisclosed related party benefit and require criminal and civil investigation. The board should not treat my presentation as a final judicial finding. Yusuf laughed once, a dry sound. So now buying land is evidence of poisoning? No, the accountant replied. It is evidence that money allocated for safety may have been diverted. The engineering evidence explains the danger. The financial evidence explains why the proper system was not installed. Peter presented the worker testimonies only after consent had been confirmed. 6 people. 6 symptom patterns. 6 records that blamed personal weakness. The worker who had fainted near the laundry room stood with her clinic file pressed against her chest. The worker who had signed the false statement kept her eyes on the floor. Peter did not shame her. He explained that her final salary had been withheld until she signed. Yusuf leaned toward his microphone. Hundreds of people work in that building. 6 complaints do not prove a corporate conspiracy. Blessing answered from her seat. No, sir. The emails prove you knew. The workers prove who paid first. The IT representative approached the screen. He displayed the deletion instruction sent at 11:43 p.m. from Yusuf's assigned executive device. It targeted 4,286 emails, 317 attachments, and 19 approval logs connected to Harbour Crown. Yusuf's lawyer objected. Devices can be used by staff. The representative nodded. That is true. We therefore reviewed access card logs, device authentication, and office cameras. Mr. Coker's card entered the office at 11:31 p.m. The device was unlocked through his biometric credential at 11:39 p.m. No other person entered before the request was sent. A glass slipped from a board member's hand. It struck the carpet and rolled without breaking. Nobody bent to pick it up. Yusuf stood. This meeting has become an ambush. The board chair told him to sit. He remained standing. I carried this company through its most difficult years. I protected payroll when banks refused us. I negotiated the Harbour Crown financing. I met a deadline that saved 12,000 jobs. And now people who have never managed anything want to destroy me because a cleaner heard a beep. His voice grew louder. You think projects of this size survive without compromise? You think every regulation can be followed like Sunday school? Investors were ready to withdraw. Delaying the opening would have triggered penalties, loan defaults, and layoffs. I made the decision any serious executive would make. Michael's face filled the screen. No, he said. Yusuf turned. Michael spoke slowly, pausing when his breath became shallow. A serious executive does not hide danger from the people carrying it. You would have done the same. I signed the structure that allowed you. The room quieted. Michael continued. You falsified records. You suppressed warnings. You diverted safety money. Those choices are yours. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. But I created a company where a cleaner needed a medical emergency before her report could reach me. Mama Ruth lowered her head. Michael looked directly into the camera. I rewarded opening dates. I did not reward anybody for stopping unsafe work. I accepted summaries prepared by people whose bonuses depended on good news. I allowed contract workers to remain outside our reporting system. My signature did not shorten that pipe. My leadership made it easier for the shortening to stay hidden. Yusuf stared at the screen. So you will sacrifice me to save your name. Michael's answer came without anger. I am giving up my name with yours. He announced that he would step aside from active executive duties during the independent investigation. He asked the board to reject the transfer resolution, appoint an external administrator for essential operations, preserve all records, and fund immediate medical screening for every worker and resident exposed to the upper zone system. Then he looked toward Blessing. I am sorry. Blessing did not smile. Sir, sorry should not stop at me. I know. It should reach the woman who signed a lie because you held her salary. It should reach the guard who was told he was weak. It should reach everybody who slept there believing expensive walls meant safe air. Michael nodded. You are right. Yusuf struck the table with his palm. This is madness. You are allowing a cleaner to instruct the board of a multi-billion naira company. Blessing stood again. Her voice was quiet. You did not protect 12,000 jobs. You used 12,000 jobs as a wall behind which you hid your own profit. The words landed harder because she did not shout. Yusuf pointed at her. You have no idea what leadership costs. And you had no idea what your savings cost our bodies. He turned toward the security chief near the door. Remove her. The security chief did not move. Yusuf's face darkened. I gave you an order. The man looked at the board chair, then back at Yusuf. Sir, you no longer control this door. A sound moved through the room. Not applause yet. Something deeper. A release of breath held for weeks. The board chair called for a vote on the emergency transfer resolution. It failed unanimously. A second motion suspended Yusuf from all duties, revoked his access credentials, and referred the procurement, document deletion and safety evidence to law enforcement and regulatory authorities. It passed unanimously. The security chief approached Yusuf. Please surrender your access card and company devices. Yusuf looked around the room as though somebody would rescue him. The lawyers beside him had already begun gathering their own files. He removed the card from his pocket and dropped it on the table. You are all making a mistake, he said. Nobody answered. Investigators met him at the side entrance. They did not handcuff him in front of the cameras. The evidence still required formal interviews, charges, and court process. They escorted him to a secured room to surrender devices and answer initial questions in the presence of counsel. Justice did not become real by skipping procedure. It became real because procedure was no longer his private property. The board chair turned to discuss public statements and reputational protection. Blessing raised her hand. The chair looked surprised. Yes, Miss Ivy? Before you save the company name, save the people who were breathing inside it. The room went quiet again. She opened her notebook to a clean page. The residents need safe accommodation while the tower is closed. Night workers need medical screening, including people whose contracts ended. Nobody should sign away rights before receiving help. The building records must be public enough for affected people to understand what happened. And workers need a way to report danger outside the same managers whose bonuses depend on silence. A board member asked, Are you proposing terms? I am asking whether your apology will have a budget. Peter looked down so nobody would see him smile. Michael spoke from the screen, record every point. The board secretary began typing. The 6 night workers were invited to join the remediation committee as paid representatives. Blessing refused a private settlement and asked for independent legal advice to be funded for all affected workers, not only for her. Mama Ruth watched her with wet eyes. At 2:17 p.m., the same minute displayed on the detector, now in daylight. The safety authority sealed the final evidence cabinet. At 2:19 p.m., The board approved emergency funding for temporary housing, medical screening, and wage protection. The numbers were not enough yet. Policies were not repair yet. But for the first time, the clock was moving in the right direction. Outside Harbour Crown Tower, reporters surrounded Blessing. Microphones reached toward her face. "Did you bring down Yusuf Coker?" one shouted. "Are you now advising the billionaire? How much compensation will you receive?" Blessing stopped on the front steps. The glass tower rose behind her. "I did not bring down anybody," she said. "His own records met him. What do you want now?" "Testing for the workers. Will you sue?" "I will take legal advice." "Do you forgive Mr. Johnson?" Blessing looked toward the hospital vehicle waiting for Mama Ruth. Forgiveness is not a replacement for correction. Then she walked away from the cameras. On the service side of the building, the night workers waited for her. The laundry worker who had once vomited into a waste bin opened her arms. Blessing entered them. Nobody called her a hero. They called her sister. That was enough for that day. The day after the board meeting, Harbour Crown Tower remained closed. Yellow safety tape crossed the main entrance. Engineers in protective equipment moved through the service levels. Residents collected essential belongings in supervised groups. Generators remained locked out except during controlled testing. For the first time since the tower opened, nobody complained that safety was delaying business. Business had already delayed safety long enough. The medical screening program began on Monday, October 28, 2024. It did not take place in a ballroom with banners and cameras. It took place in 3 rented clinics across Lagos, so workers would not need to travel to Victoria Island. Current staff, dismissed contractors, residents, and domestic employees were eligible. Transport money was paid in advance. Nobody had to sign a waiver before seeing a clinician. Blessing insisted on that last point. The first draft of the program form contained a paragraph releasing Johnson Urban Systems from future liability in exchange for free screening. She found it on page 6. "What is this?" she asked at the remediation meeting. The company lawyer described it as standard language. Blessing pushed the form back. "Then your standard is still sick." The paragraph was removed. Over the next 5 weeks, 413 people registered for screening. 87 reported symptoms that had occurred during generator use. 32 had medical records showing headaches, fainting, nausea, chest discomfort, or confusion during the relevant period. Not every symptom could be proven to have come from carbon monoxide. Some had other causes. Some records were incomplete. Some workers had never visited a clinic because they could not afford it. The independent medical team did not force certainty where certainty did not exist. They created categories. Confirmed exposure-related injury where evidence supported it. Probable exposure-related symptoms where timing and pattern were strong. Possible exposure requiring further review. Unrelated condition requiring separate care. That honesty protected the workers better than exaggeration would have done. If every headache became proof, the company could dismiss the entire program as emotional. By separating what was known from what was suspected, the investigators made the truth harder to attack. Blessing's mother attended the second clinic on November 4. She wore a cream wrapper and held Blessing's arm as they entered. Her blood pressure was high. Her memory problems were not linked to Harbour Crown because she had never worked there. But the doctors referred her for neurological assessment and medication review through a separate community support arrangement. Blessing felt embarrassed. "This fund is for exposed people," she told the clinic coordinator. "My mother should not take another person's place." The coordinator showed her the approved program. Family health support for displaced whistleblowers had been included after independent advocates reviewed the case. Blessing had lost her income and housing while protecting a public safety investigation. The support was not a gift from Michael. It was part of repairing harm caused by retaliation. Her mother squeezed her hand. "Allow people to do one correct thing," she said. Blessing nodded. Accepting proper support was not the same as accepting silence money. That distinction mattered. Michael remained in hospital for 27 days. His physical strength returned before his concentration. He could walk 50 meters with a physiotherapist, then forget a question asked 5 minutes earlier. Some mornings he spoke calmly. On others, a simple noise made him angry. He hated needing help to shower. He hated searching for words in meetings. He hated the tremor that appeared in his right hand when he became tired. One afternoon, he threw a plastic cup across the room because he could not remember the passcode to his phone. The cup struck the wall and fell without breaking. Mama Ruth watched it roll. "When you were 10, you broke my only radio because it would not tune to your station," she said. Michael pressed both hands over his face. "I am not 10. No. At 10, you apologized faster." He lowered his hands. "I am sorry. Say it to the nurse who will pick it." Michael called the nurse, apologized, and picked up the cup himself. The movement left him breathless. Mama Ruth waited until he sat again. "You are angry because your body no longer obeys your timetable," she said. "Now you understand small what poor people feel when powerful people control food, work, and rent." Michael looked toward the window. "That is not the same. No, their own can last for years." He did not answer. Dr. Sola visited twice each week as an independent consultant after the hospital formally restored his role in the review. The administration had first tried to describe his removal as a scheduling adjustment. The audit trail showed otherwise. The medical director issued a written apology and established a policy preventing donors or corporate clients from influencing clinically relevant documentation. Joy returned to the ICU after 14 days. The nursing manager told her there had been a misunderstanding. Joy replied, "A misunderstanding does not usually come with an amendment request." She asked that the investigation result be placed in her employment file beside the transfer notice. It was. She also helped design a new admission checklist that asked about workplace, generator use, shared symptoms, and environmental exposure when patients arrived with unexplained headache, collapse, or confusion. The checklist was only 1 page. 1 page could not fix medicine, but it could remind a busy clinician to ask one question that might save a life. Yusuf's case moved more slowly than social media wanted. People online demanded immediate imprisonment. Some wrote that delay meant he had escaped. Others spread rumors that he had fled Nigeria, though his passport had been deposited under court order. Investigators interviewed him 12 times over 4 months. They examined company devices, bank records, procurement files, land transactions, and communications with contractors. They questioned the engineers, lawyers, and facilities staff who had carried out his instructions. They separated poor judgment from fraud, delegated work from personal approval, and administrative failure from deliberate concealment. The process was frustrating. It was also necessary. In February 2025, prosecutors filed charges relating to procurement fraud, falsification of safety certification, obstruction of an investigation, and attempted destruction of relevant electronic records. Civil actions from affected residents and workers proceeded separately. Regulatory authorities imposed penalties and required the company to fund long-term medical follow-up. Yusuf appeared in court wearing a dark gray suit. There was no ruby red. Cameras caught him entering through the same public doorway as everybody else. No executive lift, no private corridor, no security officer clearing people from his path. Blessing did not attend the first hearing. A reporter asked whether she wanted to see him humbled. She answered from outside her training center. "I want the evidence tested. Humiliation did not make our building safe before. It will not make it safe now." Months later, Yusuf entered a plea denying criminal wrongdoing. The court scheduled disclosure, witness preparation, and hearing dates. Some charges were contested. Some financial facts were not. The legal process continued beyond the attention span of many online spectators. But Yusuf's power had already changed. He could no longer order workers to rewrite symptoms. He could no longer delete the project's memory. He could no longer call danger speculative and make the word disappear from the final report. The civil proceedings eventually produced a court-supervised settlement fund of $2. 84 billion for medical care, lost wages, relocation expenses, and verified injury claims. The amount did not come only from corporate accounts. Insurers contributed. Contractors contributed. Michael contributed from personal assets after the independent review found that his governance failures had allowed the unsafe structure to continue. He wanted to name the fund after Harbour Crown victims. The worker representatives rejected all branding. "No founder's photograph," Blessing said. "No ribbon cutting. No name that turns repair into advertisement." Michael accepted it. The fund became the Independent Exposure Recovery Trust. Plain, almost boring. That was better. Real repair did not need a smiling face on a billboard. On November 12, 2024, Michael was discharged from the hospital. He did not return to the penthouse. The entire upper zone had been stripped for reconstruction. The false detectors were removed. The exhaust system was redesigned by an independent engineering firm. New intakes were relocated. Interlocks were installed so generators could not operate if critical dampers failed. Detectors from different manufacturers were placed at multiple levels, connected to a monitoring center outside building management. The new system also included a simple rule. If an alarm activated, no manager could silence it without an automatic external record. That rule came from Blessing. "A warning should not depend on the character of the person who receives it," she said. Michael returned home to a smaller guest suite on the ground floor of his family house because stairs still tired him. He attended rehabilitation 4 days each week. He could read for 15 minutes before losing concentration. He practiced memory exercises. He learned to stop meetings when his head became heavy. The first time he joined a company governance session, he lasted 28 minutes. At minute 29, he tried to continue. Mama Ruth, sitting at the back, tapped her wristwatch. Michael stopped. Old habits did not disappear because a man gave one honest speech. They had to be interrupted again and again. The independent review of Johnson Urban Systems took 7 months. It found that the company's safety reporting structure had 3 dangerous features. Contract workers could report only through their direct supervisors, whose contracts depended on client satisfaction. Project bonuses rewarded completion dates, but imposed no equal consequence for unresolved safety exceptions. Executive summaries removed dissenting technical language before reaching the board. The review recommended 46 reforms. The company adopted 41 immediately. 4 required negotiation with contractors. One proposal, which would have allowed executives to override a site shutdown verbally during emergencies, was rejected by the worker representatives. Michaels supported the rejection. He also resigned as chief executive for a minimum of 18 months and surrendered voting control over the remediation process to an independent board committee. He remained the largest shareholder, but ownership no longer meant he could investigate himself. During a televised interview, the host asked whether stepping aside was an act of courage. Michael shook his head. "It is a consequence." "Do you believe Yusuf betrayed you?" "Yes." "Do you feel like a victim?" "I was poisoned by a system he corrupted, but workers warned that same system before it reached my bedroom. Calling myself only a victim would be another way of placing myself first." "What do you say to blessing eBay?" Michael paused. "I say her job title described her work. It did not describe the value of her eyes, her memory, or her voice." The interview circulated widely. Blessing watched only 3 minutes of it. Then she returned to class. She had enrolled in an occupational safety and building systems program on January 13th, 2025. The tuition came from a whistleblower education grant administered outside Johnson Urban Systems. She attended through an open application process. Her admission letter listed her previous coursework, her entrance assessment score, and the experience she had documented during the Harbour Crown incident. There was no honorary certificate, no private office waiting for her, no executive title. On her first week, she failed a mathematics quiz. She stared at the score until the figures blurred. For several months, people had called her brave, intelligent, and exceptional. Failing 12 out of 20 questions felt like exposure of another kind. She nearly stopped attending. Her mother found the paper beneath a food tray. "What is this?" "Nothing. It has red pen." "Red pen is never nothing," Blessing explained. Her mother studied the page upside down. "Did the school remove you?" "No." "Did they say you cannot learn?" "No." "Then why are you behaving as if one paper buried you?" Blessing laughed despite herself. "Mama, I thought you would comfort me." "I am comforting you with truth." Blessing retook the module. She studied pressure differentials, combustion, ventilation rates, sensor calibration, incident reporting, and hierarchy of controls. She learned how much she had not known when she carried her second-hand detector through Harbour Crown. That knowledge did not reduce what she had done. It made her respect the difference between observation and conclusion even more. During a class exercise, an instructor asked why workers sometimes failed to report hazards. Students gave familiar answers: fear, ignorance, poor training. Blessing added another. "Sometimes they report," she said. "The system records their voice as noise." The room became quiet. Her classmates wrote it down. Peter continued reporting long after the dramatic meeting ended. He followed the compensation process. He reported delays in medical appointments. He exposed a contractor that tried to rehire dismissed workers only after asking them to withdraw claims. He corrected his own article when one early financial figure was found to include value-added tax and not direct equipment cost. Some readers accused him of weakening the story by publishing the correction. Peter replied in his column, "Accuracy is not loyalty to a side. It is loyalty to the reader." Joy kept a copy of that sentence in her locker. Dr. Sola used the Harbour Crown case in professional training without naming private patients. He taught younger doctors to ask who else had become sick in the same place. He also warned against swinging from one error to another. "Do not dismiss a poor witness," he said, "but do not romanticize a witness either. Listen. Document, test, respect the limit of every fact." That became one of the deepest lessons of the case. Respect was not blind belief. Respect was taking a person seriously enough to investigate properly. By May 2025, the upper floors of Harbour Crown had passed 3 independent rounds of testing. The safety authority refused to reopen them after the first successful test. It required testing under different generator loads, wind conditions, and occupancy simulations. Residents complained about the delay. This time, the company did not call the delay unnecessary. Temporary accommodation continued. Wages continued. The building reopened in phases on June 23, 2025. No gala was held. No champagne bottle broke against the wall. The first people invited inside were former night workers, safety representatives, residents, and emergency responders. Blessing walked through the same service corridor where her detector had first alarmed. The vent above her was larger now. A digital panel displayed air quality readings in real time. Beside it was a red button labeled Stop Work, Safety Concern. Any worker could press it. The alarm would notify building management, the Independent Monitoring Center, and the worker safety representative at the same time. A senior manager explained the system. Blessing listened, then asked, "What happens to the person who presses it and is wrong?" The manager hesitated. Michael, standing with a walking stick several meters away, answered, "They are thanked for reporting. The condition is checked. Deliberate misuse is handled separately, but a good faith report is protected." Blessing looked at the written policy beside the panel. The same words were there. "Good," she said. Michael approached her after the tour. He walked slowly now. His right hand still trembled when he became tired. "I have wanted to ask you something," he said. Blessing waited. "Why did you come to the hospital after we dismissed you?" She looked toward the service lift. "Because poison does not become harmless after somebody insults you. I do not know whether I would have done the same." "That is not a question you answer with imagination, sir. You answer it the next time speaking costs you something." Michael nodded. He had learned not to turn her words into an opportunity to praise himself. They stood in silence. Then he said, "Your mother, how is she?" "She is managing." Blessing smiled. "But now we ask what managing means." Her mother's medication had been adjusted. She still forgot dates sometimes. Some mornings, she called Blessing by her sister's name. But she no longer missed tablets because they were too expensive. She attended appointments. She had moved with Blessing into a modest two-bedroom flat where the windows opened properly and the landlord issued receipts. On July 7, 2025, Blessing completed her program with distinction in incident documentation and an average result in engineering mathematics. She was prouder of the average. It had required more work. Johnson Urban Systems invited her to become head of safety communications. She declined. "I am not qualified to head it yet," she said. The company offered her an advisory title. She declined again. "I do not want a title created because my story is useful to your image." Instead, she applied for a paid graduate placement with the Independent Monitoring Unit that oversaw several commercial buildings, including Harbour Crown. The recruitment process included a written examination, practical assessment, and panel interview. She came second out of 63 candidates. The unit hired 4. Her first salary was not millions. It was $287,500 per month before deductions. Blessing printed the employment letter and placed it beside the old Brightway termination message. Her mother looked at both. "This new one is longer," she said. "It has better grammar. Does it have respect?" Blessing read the reporting and anti-retaliation clauses again. "We will test that part with time." The Independent Exposure Recovery Trust paid its first lost wage claims in August 2025. The woman who had signed the false statement received compensation without being punished for the signature. The review recognized that withholding salary had created coercion. When she collected her decision letter, she cried. "I thought they would say I helped them lie," she told Blessing. "You signed because they held your food." Blessing said. Responsibility belongs first to the hand that used hunger as a pen. The guard who had experienced chest pain received follow-up care. The laundry worker received treatment for persistent anxiety whenever generators started. Not every injury appeared on a blood test. The trust included mental health support because fear could remain after the gas was gone. The remediation program also changed contractor payment rules. Final salaries could no longer be withheld to force workers to sign health statements. Safety complaints bypassed direct supervisors. Anonymous reports went to an external line. Monthly dashboards showed not only injury counts, but unresolved warnings, response time, and retaliation complaints. Managers were assessed on how quickly risks were corrected, not how quietly reports disappeared. 3 weeks before the anniversary training, Michael attended a closed restitution meeting with 31 affected workers. There were no cameras. The meeting was held in a plain rented hall in Harbour because several workers refused to enter Harbour Crown again. Plastic chairs formed a circle. Bottled water sat on a folding table. A handwritten notice near the door said that nobody was required to speak and nobody's compensation would depend on forgiveness. Michael arrived early. He tried to sit at the head of the circle until the facilitator reminded him there was no head. He moved his chair. For 2 hours, he listened. A cleaner described waking each morning with a headache so strong that she tied a wet cloth around her forehead before boarding the bus. Her supervisor had told her to stop behaving like a pregnant woman, though she was not pregnant. A guard said he had borrowed locked $47,300 for clinic tests after chest pain frightened him. When the results did not show a heart attack, management used that fact to call his complaint false. The laundry worker explained how shame had stayed with her after she vomited in front of colleagues. She had returned to duty because the attendance sheet was closing in 9 minutes. Another worker said nothing about illness. He spoke about language. "Sir, when staff used the main lift, they called them employees," he said. "When we used the service lift, they called us manpower. It is easier to risk manpower because the word does not sound like somebody's father." Michael wrote the sentence down. His hand shook. At the end, the facilitator asked whether he wanted to respond. Michael stood, then changed his mind and remained seated. "I came with explanations," he said. "I have crossed many of them out." He turned his notebook so the workers could see the cancelled lines. "I wanted to explain how information was filtered before reaching me. But I designed the reporting structure. I wanted to explain that Yusuf hid the risk, but I gave him authority without an independent check. I wanted to say I did not know, but the company made not knowing comfortable for me and dangerous for you." The room remained quiet. One worker asked, "Will you return as CEO after 18 months? "I do not know." "Do you want to?" Michael paused. "Yes, then what has changed?" "I no longer believe wanting the position proves I deserve it." That answer did not produce applause. It was not supposed to. The workers gave him a list of 14 demands. 4 concerned medical follow-up. 3 concerned contract rights. 2 concerned access to incident data. The rest concerned dignity. Names on identification cards instead of generic numbers. Equal emergency evacuation drills. Clean changing rooms. Sufficient lockers. And the right to use safe drinking water points without being chased from public areas. Michael stared at the request for lockers. "How many are missing?" he asked. Blessing, who attended as a worker representative, answered from across the circle. "At Harbour Crown, there were 19 lockers for 28 night workers. The correction cost less than 1 executive dinner. It had remained undone for months." Michael closed his notebook. "Approve the immediate items this week," he told the independent administrator. Price and schedule the structural ones. Publish progress every month. Blessing raised a hand. No, sir. Michael looked at her. Why? Do not approve demands inside a listening meeting without review. That is another kind of executive performance. Let the responsible teams verify, budget, and commit in writing. Workers should see what is accepted, what needs modification, and why. Michael inhaled slowly. You are correct. The independent administrator issued the written response 8 days later. 12 demands were accepted. 2 were revised after safety and privacy review. None disappeared. Before the anniversary training, new lockers had been installed. Contract identification cards carried names and emergency roles. Domestic staff joined evacuation drills. The public drinking water points were opened to all workers. None of those changes appeared in the viral headlines. They mattered. Anyway. On October 16, 2025, 1 year after Michael collapsed, the Independent Monitoring Unit held its first public worker safety training inside Harbour Crown. The room had no chandelier. It was a practical classroom on the 7th floor with movable chairs, exposed demonstration ducts, and instrument tables. 48 cleaners, guards, maintenance workers, and supervisors attended. Blessing stood at the front in a sunflower yellow safety vest over a teal blouse. On the wall behind her were 12 words. An alarm does not become false, because the person hearing it is poor. Michael arrived without a convoy. He wore a cobalt blue jacket and walked with his stick. The organizers had placed a reserved chair in front for him. He moved it to the second row. Mama Ruth sat beside him in royal purple and gold. Joy attended in navy. Dr. Sola wore charcoal trousers and a white shirt without his coat. Peter sat near the back with a notebook. Nobody stood when Michael entered. That had been his request. Blessing began the session with the crack detector sealed inside a clear display box. This device was useful, she said. It was also limited. It warned me. It did not give me permission to pretend I knew everything. She showed the class how handheld sensors required calibration, correct placement, and maintenance. She explained that carbon monoxide could not be trusted to announce itself through smell. She discussed symptoms, evacuation, emergency reporting, and the danger of entering a suspected contaminated space without protection. Then she held up her old notebook. This one had no battery, she said. But it also saved evidence. The workers laughed softly. She taught them to record time, location, conditions, symptoms, who was informed, and what response followed. She explained that a report should describe observation before conclusion. Do not write, "The generator is killing us," if you do not yet know. Write, 3 people developed headache within 20 minutes of generator start. Detector alarmed at this location. Supervisor informed at this time. Specific facts traveled further than panic. Halfway through the session, a young maintenance worker near the back raised his hand. The air conditioning unit above the demonstration wall had begun making a metallic knocking sound. "Ma, that sound was not there this morning," he said. A supervisor glanced at the schedule. There were 3 modules left. Lunch had already arrived. Michael had another appointment. Reporters were present. For one old second, the room waited to see which thing mattered most. The supervisor walked to the control panel and shut down the unit. Training paused, he announced. Maintenance inspection first. Nobody complained. The worker who reported the sound was asked to show exactly what he heard. A technician opened the panel and found a loose fan bracket. It was not a major danger. It could have become one if ignored. The supervisor thanked him in front of the room. Blessing watched, her eyes filled with tears. Not because the company had become perfect, It had not. Not because every manager had become humble. Some had not. Not because policy could remove greed from human hearts. It could not, she cried. Because this time, a warning had interrupted the schedule before a body hit the floor. Michael remained in the second row. He did not stand to make the moment about himself. When the inspection ended, the class resumed. At the close, Mama Ruth approached the display box containing the detector. "This small thing caused plenty trouble," she said. Blessing smiled. "No, Ma. The trouble was already there. It only refused to keep quiet." Mama Ruth laughed. Outside the classroom, Peter asked Blessing for one final comment for his anniversary report. What changed most in 1 year? Blessing looked through the glass wall toward the service corridor. Before, people asked whether the person reporting danger had enough status. Now they are learning to ask whether the danger has enough evidence. Is that justice? It is part of it. What remains? Watching the system after the cameras leave. Peter wrote that down. The legal case against Yusuf had not ended. The medical follow-up had not ended. Some residents still disputed compensation. Some workers still feared reporting supervisors. Michael's memory still failed him on difficult days. Blessing still made mistakes in her new job. Life did not close like a courtroom door after one powerful speech. But actions had consequences now. Warnings had roots. Records had protection. Workers had representation. And power had learned, at least in one building, that a cheap uniform could carry an expensive truth. From my own reading of what happened, the most frightening part was never only that one powerful man nearly died. It was that cleaners, guards, and maintenance workers had been breathing the same danger for weeks, yet their pain became believable only after it entered an executive bedroom. The events in this account have been shaped into a dramatic reflection on workplace safety, medical listening, whistleblower protection, and human dignity. Certain technical and legal processes are presented in a condensed form for narrative clarity. In real medical or workplace emergencies, qualified professionals, proper documentation, and the appropriate authorities are essential. The lesson remains simple. A warning does not lose value because it comes from somebody wearing a faded uniform. Respect that begins only after a person becomes useful is not respect. And when society trains itself to hear only powerful voices, danger does not disappear. It simply learns where the poor people work.